Hey everybody, I am Brent and I'm here to present a small special presentation on a behind the scenes project that I recently worked on with a company that I work for. The company I work for is doing sets for different film productions and TV show stuff and commercials, and every once in a while they get some promotional gear that comes in to do build live promotions and set pieces that actually go out there in the real world and are up for a very short time. So the piece that the actual company got in recently was for the actual live event that took place in Hollywood, California last week for the premiere of One Piece Season 2. And that warranted having all the actors and everything from the show crossing onto the carpet, the red carpet, and actually taking photo presentations on something that I had part in building. So I wanted to show a behind the scenes to everybody on how the process goes together, on how building a small set goes. And again, this is just a small, tiny piece, but it's kind of the end of the journey for these characters of what the actors and the crew put together for One Piece. And that's the promotional arc of their journey to this part to releasing season 2. So, how does this all begin? Well, the company I work with, as I said, they get in different productions and different pieces like that. And it turned out Netflix wanted us to build a set piece. So that was going to be for the red carpet, something that the actors could actually be standing on and be representation of their environment in the field. So what happens? How does this work? Well, the company comes to us and says, well, we're looking for something like the Going Merry. We want a small version of it, something like a photo booth style. And from there, the designers go ahead and they start putting the pieces together, starting the drawings, starting the architecture, and piecing together what needs to be built for this particular event. From there, it ends up by going off to what's called the CNC department, where they actually cut all the pieces out, parts of the ship, bit by bit. Everything has to be structural. We know that cast and actors are going to be standing on it. We want to make sure it doesn't fall out from under their feet. So all the structural ability, putting this sort of stuff together, ends up by being figured out in that process. That point, from when we have all the cut out pieces, the assembly process starts and we start to assemble it. And of course, you really can't do something like this and this large unless you've got a full crew. And the cool thing is, we've got a really amazing crew. We've got a crew which it includes designers and set builders and scenic painters, and then we have the printing department who does the printing of stuff like the sail. And then we go through and we have the stuff for the sculptors who carve all the foam carvings, like the headpiece of the Going Merry. You have all these different elements coming together to help forge the final piece that goes on from there. So I'm going to, as I said, show you through some of these pieces. So part of the process as things are being built and assembled together is that you have to test the structural integrity of these things. So I decided to make sure that it was strong enough that I could jump on and make sure that everything felt good and that there's no problems. You don't want anything like there's a tripping problem where people could trip over them. And everything seemed to be going pretty well. It looks, it was part of this process. And of course, you can't get anywhere doing this kind of a project unless you've got a straw hat somewhere in the shop where you can just put it on and pretend to be a straw hat as such. The important thing is, does it meet the Monkey D. Luffy test of approval? And I think he'd be very happy with this. So along the journey, you've got other departments, as I was saying before. The foam carving department that actually ends up by carving all the foam pieces. Some of the rock towers that you see in the side are carved out and by a completely different department, the foam carving department. And then they also sculpt things like the figurehead for the Going Merry as part of that process. Everything must be all interlocked together to go out into location. So it must be well thought out as to making sure that every piece interlocks properly, as this is going to possibly be going on tour from different place to place as different events take place too. So what happens once we've locked together all the pieces that actually are put onto the CNC machine? We have to then at that point start to do all the details, and some of those details include the decking of the ship, where planks were cut up and ripped into size and laid down, put together, and at that point they'll be sent off to get stained by the paint department and made as the decking of the ship. Along with that, you go through a series of different power tools, things like that, that allow you to cut and router and do all these trims and put these trims together. Some of the other areas that are actually going into this is the railing. So the railing pieces we actually bought, and then we cut and we actually managed to fit them to the scale of the ship, putting them in place. Some of the additional details were things like 3D printing. And pieces had to be 3D printed to put onto the railing. Since there was some molding we couldn't get that was that scale. So the 3D printing line comes in, and then you start to 3D print pieces and bring it together there. From there, it has to go to the paint department, and the paint department has all the samples and tests of how it needs to go together for the final colors to match it to what it looks like in the show itself. And then it goes from the paint department to the 2D printing line. And then along with 3D printing, you also have 2D printing, and the 2D printing department prints out things like the sail, the side of the actual ship, where you see all the molding is actually all printed. That was eventually stuck on by a separate team. You get things also printed like the Tony Chopper, which in fact was also something that McKenna took a shine to when at the premiere. So it was kind of fun that we actually had to put that on a backing, cut around the edge, and make it as part of the presentation. You can see here that there's already these different levels and layers of things that have to come together to make this all happen. So at this point, you've got everything together. You've got the design, you've got the construction, you've got the scenic painting going on, you've got all of the 2D and 3D printing assembling this piece together as a whole, and then it gets all shipped up, padded up, and then sent to the location, which happens to be a theater in downtown Los Angeles where they held the premiere. And I don't have much video footage there. Sadly, I was not part of that particular setup crew, but it gets set up, put together, and then at this point you start to see it kind of come together as the whole. Then, of course, it goes to the premiere night, where you've got the different actors and the different casts that came out. Now, I didn't really know if they were going to actually do any real, standing on the set piece, and then it turned out the first video of images I saw that ended up online were the main cast was standing on something that myself and the rest of the crew that I work with on the set piece itself. And I can tell you, it made me so happy to see that all that hard work over the last 2 weeks of building up to the premiere, you actually got to see it pay off with the cast standing on something that you had built that reflects the cast and the characters so well. It was such a thrill to put this together, and such a thrill to actually see this online firsthand as the night went on. There was more images, more photos, more video of the different cast members that are up there, and it's part of that. It's part of that thing working in Hollywood. I find I do enjoy that process. I enjoy the construction. I enjoy the making process, the design process, seeing it all come together. It's very fruitful in its way. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes an entire crew of people to put this sort of stuff together. I'm just a small cog in this larger piece, but at the same time, and it was so much fun. So in conclusion, if you get the chance when you're actually watching some of the actual shows and One Piece in season 2, and you're sitting there and you're looking at stuff, just take a moment to just take in the wonder of what it takes to put together all the big set pieces, all the costume pieces, all of the hard work that goes into it by not just the cast, but the crew themselves, and many people that put this together, right down to the promotional of the actual pieces themselves. Presentation is so much on this in this world, and it was such a pleasure to be part of that little cog of the machine, which is the promotional side of this particular series. So if you do enjoy, please like and subscribe if you have not already. I will be doing reactions to season 2 of One Piece, and if you haven't had the chance, go back and check out some of my re-reactions of season 1. And I can't wait to watch season 2. Come and join me, and I will be reacting to every episode and looking forward to every moment of it. Thanks again, guys.